Well, in Vayeishev.
Oh. Okay. Rabbi Noach, one of the Rishonim on the Rambam, has a very interesting thing to say regarding Leila Seder, even though we may be 4 months away, but try to remember this for Leila Seder. Rabbi Noach says that the reason why we dip the karpas into salt water on Leila Seder is because zikaron or zecher, to remember when the brothers dipped the coat, the ksoides pasim, into dam. So we're dipping the karpas into salt water to remember the brothers dipping the ksoides pasim into the dam. Now, if you notice Rashi on the word ksoides pasim, in fact, Rashi Perek Lamed Zayin Pasuk. In the beginning. Rashi on Pasuk Gimel. Perek Lamed Zayin Pasuk Gimel. Rashi says Pasim is Lashon Klei Milas. Klei Milas, it's a type of wool. What's called translate? You have it there? Lamed Gimel. It's like a wool or possibly silk.
Woolen. It's a fine woolen.
Fine woolen?
Woolen.
And says Rashi Kemoi Karpas.
Fine woolen tunic.
Yeah.
But Rashi says Kemoi Karpas Utcheles. Like in the Megillas Esther, it says Chur Karpas Utcheles. The one of the things that Achashverosh in the Suda over there had Chur Karpas Utcheles. The Karpas was a type of a wool, a silk. So amazingly enough, Rashi says on Pasim, what is Ksonis Pasim is Karpas. So it's interesting to note that this Rabbeinu Noach, who says that we dipping to commemorate or to remember the dipping of the brothers, is taka. It was the same karpas that was used. Now the question is, Reb Shlomo Kluger points out, why is it that we what's it got to do with the Seder? On the Seder night, we have to remember the brothers dipping the dam, the ksonis pasim into the dam. What's the connection to Seder night? So he says a fantastic word that when we know on Leila Seder, so we're talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim, coming out of Mitzrayim, all the nisim that Hashem did for us when we came out of Mitzrayim. Says the Baal HaGoda, but you have to remember why you came into Mitzrayim. What was the reason why you came down to Mitzrayim? And before you start Man Ishtana, before you start the Seder, we dip the karpas to remind us that the reason why we went down is because the brothers couldn't get along with their brother. That because of the lack of Avas Yisrael, so we had to go down to Mitzrayim. The Galgal Hashem, step by step, we went down to Mitzrayim because of the brothers couldn't get along with each other. So this is Baal HaGoda saying that we have to remember from the start of the Seder why we had to go down, and this unfortunately was because of sibling rivalry, or because of brothers' jealousy. And all that, Ahavas Yisrael, the lack of Ahavas Yisrael. Okay, so
It also says that it's mentioned in the incident of Tamar and Amnon. Says
right. Okay, good. So I wanted to discuss a little bit about the Ksonis Pasim, and hopefully, if we have time, we'll go to the end of the Parshat discussing the dreams of the butler and the baker. But the Ksonis Pasim, if we notice a central pasuk in that parsha, which is in Perek Lamed Zayin, pasuk Lamed Aleph. Perek Lamed Zayin, pasuk Lamed Aleph. More correct, Lamed Beis. Lamed Beis is a difficult pasuk. All the Rishonim seem to have issues with this. The pasuk says as follows: Vayishalchu Vayishalchu es kisoines hapasim vayoviu el avihem vayomru zois matzanu hakerna hakisoines bincha hi imloi. Says the pasuk that the Vayeshalchu, they sent the kisoines pasim, right? The multicolored, they say in English, the multicolored coat. Vayoviu el avihem. Okay, so the difficulty here is if they sent it, so how could they bring it? I mean, if you sent it, you don't have it anymore. So how can you now bring it? So all the Rishonim deal with this, the Ramban, many different approaches to this question. How, if you send it, so you don't have it anymore, now how can you bring it? So the Ramban, in fact, points out that the Vayeshalchu is that they sent it with shlichim. They sent it with messengers, and the messengers are the ones that brought it then now to Yaakov Avinu. And in fact, those Mefarshim that say like that, they want to say that the brothers themselves didn't want to bring it to Yaakov. They didn't want to deal with it, face him. So they sent it with the brothers, with a messenger. The brothers sent it with a messenger, and the messenger is the one that brought it. Other Mefarshim say that the actual word, this is the Rabbeinu Bechaya and Chizkuni, they bring it as a Yesh Omrim, that others say that Vayishalchu is actually not from the word they sent, but from the pasuk. I think it says in Iyov, Bashelach Ya'avoru, Bashelach is like a sword, that they actually tore it up. In fact, they ripped it up, maybe even with a sword. They ripped up the Ksunis Pasim, and then they brought it to their father. I mean, they didn't send it, but rather they had it. They ripped it up, and that's how they presented it to their father. Then Vayoviu el Avim. But you see that the Rishonim have this. The pasuk is very difficult at face value. So that's number one. Just to point out what is Vayeshalchu and Vayoviu. The second point is the seifah of the pasuk. The rest of the pasuk, it says Vayomru zois matzanu. Okay, so they bring the Ksenis Pasim to the father, and they say to the father, Hakerna Haksonis bin Chaim hi imloi. They ask Yaakov, please recognize the Ksonis. So there's a bit of a diuk or ha'ara we have, because you can argue with this one, but it's a little bit, if you're sensitive to the lashon over here, is hakerna, is please recognize. Now, recognize is something, recognition is something, if you recognize something, it's almost automatic. Meaning you see something, you recognize it. You don't have to be asked to, it sounds like there's a tircha involved, there's a bother, you've got to, try and recognize something. Recognizing something, you would straight away recognize it. Yeah, it sounds like there's some type of a tircha involved, that they have to, please, Father, please recognize this if you can.
Well, if the second explanation of them tearing it up was actually the explanation, it may not have been recognizable.
Okay, so that is a point, but still, as we know, it was a multicolored coat, and
he made it.
And he made it. So it's very difficult to say that he wouldn't have saw it straight away, or it wouldn't have caught his eye straight away. Again, you can argue it's just a sensitivity over here. What's the point of saying hakerna, please recognize? You'll recognize straight away without me asking you to recognize it.
It was an unusual article to begin with.
It was unusual, correct.
Yeah, so it's not like right off the rack.
Correct, they would have come straight away. Right. Exactly. And so that's the second point. Just to mention over here, we mentioned the Ramban pointed out that the brothers sent it together with a shaliach, or the messenger. Now this would make more sense the way the pasuk is mentioned. Hakesoines bincha himloi. Now if it's the messengers talking, so they will say to the father, they'll say to Yaakov, please recognize, is this the ksonis of your son? Now, if it's the brothers that brought it, so that's more difficult to say, ksonis bincha. They would say, is this our brothers, or is this, they wouldn't say, is this Yosef's?
Well, it was all ripped up. It wasn't in the same condition it was when they first had war it.
Right. But on the bincha, we're saying, why does he mention ksonis bincha is more meduyak, according to the Ramban's way of saying that the messengers brought it, so then they talking and they say to their father, your son. That makes more sense than if the brothers bring it. It's a bit difficult, this notion of bincha.
It seems like there's extra here. It seems there's, because he's saying, we found this, identify it. And then they're saying, is this your son's tunic or not? And then it says, you recognize it. Why was it necessary to say, is this your son's or not? If you recognize it, he certainly would have said right away.
Good, yeah, good point. Yeah.
It seems like there's extra words here that are not necessary.
Good. So hopefully I hope we'll address that as well. If we just go back now to Pasuk Chav Gimel in the beginning, when Yosef appears to the brothers after he finds his way, and he makes his way to Doisan. Perek Lamed Zayin Pasuk Chav Gimel. Vayehi kasher bo Yosef el Echav. Pasuk Chav Gimel. Yosef comes to the brothers. Vayafshitu es Yosef es kutonto es soines apasim asher alav. Okay, very explicit pasuk here of they stripped Yosef of his coat. Es kutonto es soines apasim asher alav.
They repeated it.
Oh, so what is kutanto and kesoines hapasim? Says Rashi, es kutanto zehu chaluk. This is the coat, okay? Es kesoines hapasim hu shoesif lo aviv yoter alechav. That this is the additional kesoines that his father added, right? The extra coat that he added. Now, so on the one hand, it sounds like the pasuk is saying there's one coat. There's a kesoines, and the pasuk says es kesoines hapasim. We're referring to the same coat, meaning it's describing this one coat of Yosef. Okay, and you can understand Rashi that way, meaning this is the chaluk that he had. What chaluk? The chaluk that he added more than other brothers had. We'll come back to the pasuk. Also, just to point out, asher alav is also seemingly redundant. They stripped clothing that he was wearing, or that was on him. I mean, if you take off clothes, it's automatically on you. You don't have to tell me that they stripped the clothes that was on him. So the asher alav is redundant over here. But now, very good. So we refer to the kesoines as kesoines hapasim. However, if you look further in Pasuk Lamed Aleph, if we go back to where we started, Pasuk Lamed Aleph, Vayikchu es kesoines Yosef, Vayishchatu es sirizim. Now when they take the kesoines of Yosef, they dip it in the dam, Vayatvilu es kutonis badam. Now it refers to the kesoines without saying kesoines hapasim. They take the kesoines of Yosef. Now, one would say, why doesn't it say kesoines hapasim? Because we know we're referring to the kesoines hapasim. Okay, good. That's why the pasuk in Lamed Aleph doesn't say kesoines hapasim. However, okay.
Was he wearing two things? Was he wearing
Good.
And above that was
That's what it says.
So good. So,
That's what it says.
Oh, that's what I want to get to. So yeah,
Like this is,
good.
you have an outerwear, you have an underwear.
Oh, good. So Lamed Aleph says kesoines Yosef without saying pasim. Lamed Beis, the next pasuk says Vayishalchu es kesoines hapasim. Now, why is the pasuk referring to it as kesoines hapasim if before we established that you don't have to call it kesoines hapasim because we know it's talking about the kesoines hapasim. Then it was referred to as kesoines. So now, why do you refer to it as kesoines hapasim? So there's a back and forth over here. We have to understand what's going on. Is it kesoines hapasim? Is it the same thing or not? And yes,
I'm saying that the tunic was the undergarment, and then the woolen one was a garment that was made on top.
good. So you suggesting
That's what it's,
Well, it's two tunics.
two tunics.
Oh, so you're suggesting two tunics, which we're going to see is the mahalach we want to go with, but we'll see it's not so simple because there are many that don't know like this. So this boils down to the fourth point over here is how many were there? So we mentioned how many coats were there. So we mentioned the Rashi on the pasuk in Chav Gimel. Rashi pointed out kutantoi zeu chaluk. Es kesoines hapasim is zeu hu shohisif loy aviv yoser me'achav. So there's a machlokes here in the Rashi, in the Mefarshei Rashi. The Mizrahi learns that it's the same one coat. There's one coat And like we mentioned in the beginning, one coat that was, which coat is this? The one that he was added by the father. However, many Mefarshim, the Maharal, the Nachlas Yaakov, they learn in Rashi, no, like you were saying, that there were two coats. There's Eskutanto, Eskusonas Apasim. It doesn't say Ve'eskusonas Apasim, but that's not a problem because sometimes it doesn't have to say the extra vav. But really there was one coat, like you're saying, there was an undershirt or undercoat, and then there was a coat on top. And the Ksonas Pasim, the fact was the one on top that Yosef used to wear outside, because his father gave it to him. I think I heard some say that this was in those days it was also gave one a royal feeling. He was feeling already the leader by wearing that. Also, his father gave it to him, but he also
See that Yaakov made the second coat,
yes,
the fine woolen coat. But here it says that they dipped the tunic, which would be undergarment,
good.
in the dam, and then but they gave the woolen tunic to the father,
good,
so to Yaakov.
So I want to say what you want. I just want to say out what you want to say.
I'm sorry.
No, good. No, you're mechaven to. So there's a sefer called the Meleches Machsheves. I don't know who wrote it. And he says, like we were saying, that there were two coats, and normally the Ksonis Pasim was on the top. Okay, and like we said, because he wanted to show, the Malchus wanted to show he's the leader, but when he was coming now to the brothers, so he realized that it's not a good idea. He realized that there was bad feelings between him and the brothers, and he didn't want to tick it off. He didn't want to start up anything. So what he did was he put his undercoat on the top. So he put his Ksonis Pasim underneath, because that's the Ksonis his father gave him. But he put the Ksonis, the regular tunic, he put on the outside. And that's the lashon of the pasuk Asher Alav, because the pasuk is stressing Eskutanto Eskusonas Apasim Asher Alav. The Ksonas Apasim was on his body. We asked, why are you telling me it was on him? Of course it was on him. If you were stripping it was on him. Mm-hmm. No, the point was that the Ksonas Pasim was on his body, as opposed to normally it was on top of his clothes. So here, in this case, he actually had it on his body, Ksonas Pasim, and then the Kutanto, the regular tunic, was on the outside.
Why did he do it? Not to show up? Why would he do that?
Well, that the brothers shouldn't
Be jealous?
Be jealous. Well, they shouldn't.
He would think that.
Rub it in. Now he felt that if he wears this, coming to meet them, they're gonna,
So they stripped him of the tunic, which was on top now.
Good.
Dipped that in the blood.
Okay,
then-
good. So we come to that pasuk. Very excellent. So pasuk Lamed Aleph. If we come back now to pasuk Lamed Aleph, we'll pay attention to the words. Vayikhu es Kesonos Yosef. Okay, so they took the Kesonos Yosef. Now we said Kesonos is not the Kesonos Pasim. That's the regular tunic. Then they shechted a se'irizim, a goat, which is dam, which is the most similar to human blood. They dipped it in the goat's dam. Vayitbelu es akutonis badam. What did they dip in? They dipped in the regular tunic that everyone else had. The tunic that was normally worn under the undershirt, and now they dipped that in. Then comes the pasuk Lamed Beis, Vayishalchu es Ksonos Apasim. Vayishalchu means they threw away. You could say even they discarded. They threw it away. That's the problematic one that they discarded. Vayaviu el Avihem is referring to the Ksonos Pasim.
Right.
They threw away the Ksonos Pasim, and the Vayaviu el Avihem is they brought the regular tunic to the father. And that's when they ask him, please recognize. Now you need someone that knows Yosef ready to recognize it, because it's not simple. Now it's the regular tunic.
One. That's right.
Exactly, it wasn't the special one, and only someone that knows Yosef knows his size. Maybe he had to size it up to see that it was really Yosef.
So this is the undergarment that they really showed him.
Exactly.
But it says here that they dispatched the fine woolen tunic, which would have been the coat.
Correct. What is dispatch? So he's
What do you
learning
mean by dispatch?
dispatch. Yeah,
That should
that's
mean
the
got
question.
rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, we explaining Vayishalchu is they threw it away. They discarded it, as opposed to dispatch.
They dispatched the fine woolen and they brought it. to
So
the
I'm translating the dispatch is not dispatch, but Vayishalchu they threw it away. They discarded it. And then
And they
Vayaviu,
brought the
then
other
what did they
two.
bring? The one that they dipped in the dough. And that's when they asked the father, please recognize this. That's the point of
That's why it says.
Haker no, is please recognize, because it's something that is not easily recognizable. Oh, so that's just, that's one, at least one approach. But again, we can see that other Rishonim didn't learn like this. The Ramban, Rabbeinu Manoach, that we mentioned in the beginning, he learned that, we dip the karpas into salt water, reminding us of they dipped the ksonis pasim into salt water. So he clearly didn't learn like
I
this.
have so many questions. If the tunic is the undergarment,
Yes,
it wasn't anything special for any undergarment that anyone else would have had.
correct.
So why are they asking? You recognize this? It wouldn't be any different than Jack's or
It might be.
Eliezer's.
It might be.
Right.
What might have been different about that?
Exactly. So I think it's
Different
just the size. Yeah, the size.
Size?
Correct. And Yosef, if he knew Yaakov, if he knew his sons well, then at least he,
He
know
was only
which is-
17, the other ones were much older.
Right.
That's true.
Right. Yeah.
Like me, I'm younger than most.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So that's just to food for thought to understand. At least there were two. Something which seemed a simple story is not so simple. There was things going on over here that.
Very good.
If you look a bit deeper under the surface. If we can move on to the end of Shvi, at the end of the Parsha, we come across a fascinating story which is Perek Mem, Pasuk Aleph. Okay, the Pasuk, as we know, the Parsha referring to Yosef is in jail. Okay, and the butler and the baker have a dream, but before the dream, it says the pasuk, "Vayachar advarim ha'ele chatu mashke melech Mitzrayim v'ha'oifeh." Okay, the mashke and the ofeh, the butler and the baker sin to melech Mitzrayim, la'adoneihem lemelech Mitzrayim. We'll see what that means, but. At face value, we have the mashke and the ofeh, the baker and the butler, sinning. Vayikzoif, says Pasuk Beis, Vayikzoif, Paroi al shnei sarisov, al sar ha-mashkim v'al sar ha-oifim. Okay, here Paroi now gets angry at his two ministers, al sar ha-mashkim and sar ha-oifim. Now, why is the pasuk referring to them as sar ha-oifim and sar ha-mashkim? The pasuk before referred to them as mashke and ha-ofeh. Now, Paro is getting angry at them. Why are they being promoted?
Elevated.
Now they sar ha-mashkim, sar ha-oifim. That's the first point. Vayitain. Okay, if we look to pasuk Hey. Pasuk Hey says that now they have a dream. Vayachalmu chalom shneim ish chalamoy b'layla echad. Ishkef Yisron Chanamoy, so each one has a dream. Ha-mashke v'ha-ofeh. Pasuk goes back to mashke and ofeh. Before, as we said in the beginning, it was mashke and ofeh. Then it was Sarah mashkim, Sarah ofim. Now Pasuk Hey is ofeh, back to ofeh and mashke. And from that point on, we actually refer to them in Pasuk Tes as Sarah ofim, Sarah mashkim. So the Malbim points out. Malbim asks, what's the difference? What's Sarah Oifim and Mashke Oifim? Make up your mind. Are they Sarah Oifim or Sarah or Oifeh? Says the Malbim that they're referring to 4 different people. There's, as happens in all palaces, if you know, right? There's not only one baker and one butler, but there's a supervisor. You have the bakers in the kitchen, and then you have the baker. He's not going to be the one that brings the food to Paro. He's going to be, right, it'll be the Sarah with him that will bring the baking goods. He's not going to come in with his dirty shoes and baking hat to Paro. It'll be the Sarah with the Sarah with he'll be the minister. He's going to be presenting it to Paro. And the mashke, for the same point, the one that makes the wine is not the one that's going to be bringing the goblet to Paro. And with that in mind, we have to understand, okay, what was the sin? As Rashi tells us, what was the sin of the oife? What was the sin of the mashke? So Chazal tell us, Rashi points this out, right? What was the butler's sin? Anyone know? What was the butler's sin? He brought the choice.
A fly flew into the wine.
That's it, good. There was a fly, he presented Paro with wine with a fly inside, right? It reminds me of what they say. They say someone has a fly in his soup, and he tells the waiter, "I've got a fly in the soup. What's this doing over here?" So the waiter says he's doing backstroke. Anyway, so he has the fly now. It's a terrible thing, but in Paro's eyes, he's off with his head, right? Someone that gives to Paro with a fly in his cup, he deserves to be demoted. Now, yeah. And the oife, what was the issue with the oife? Says Rashi,
Pebble.
it was a pebble. There was a small stone or stones found in the bread.
In the bread. In the dough, yeah.
So now, if we just question for a moment, if we analyze the story, we're talking about 4 individuals. Yeah, the Sarah Mashkim, Sarah Oifim, the Mashke and the Oife. Now, between these 4 people, who is most culpable, who's the most responsible over here? Meaning, right, so if we focus on the wine, okay, so bringing the wine, who would be the Sarah Mashkim or the Mashke?
The Mashke.
Who would be more responsible?
The Mashke, the one who's bringing it, should look at it first.
I would say the Sarah Mashkim.
Is he's the one that's bringing
He's
it?
the one that's bringing the Sarah Mashkim, the minister.
Okay.
That's who the king is going to be interfacing with.
Say again?
He's bringing it to the king.
To the king.
So the king is going to see him. He's
Right.
not going to know about anybody else.
Right, but also because it's a fly, I mean, it could have happened
On the way.
on the way.
Most
But
likely.
at any time, it didn't have to be
Right.
back in the making stage.
Yeah.
So therefore, regarding the wine, if we look at the mashke or the Sarah mashkim, who's more responsible is the Sarah mashkim. If we look at the oife,
It's the other way around.
The other way around. We have the oife or the Sarah oife. So who's responsible is the baker, right?
Well, the pebble didn't fall in on the way over.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the Sarah oifim. So for him to be responsible, it's not fair on him. He doesn't have to weigh every piece of mazonos or piece of bread, a loaf of bread. It's not his job to weigh the loaf. Okay, so he's the Sarah, so he's responsible. But who literally who actually had his hands in the sin in the dough is the oifer. So that's why regarding the wine, it would be the more culpable one is the Sarah mashkim, and regarding the baker is the oifer. Good. So now they have a dream.
But all 4 of them are in jail?
Yes, all 4 of them in jail.
All 4 of them had dreams?
So, no, it's the Sarah oifim. The pasuk says the Sarah oifim and the Sarah mashkim have a dream. Now, what is their dream? As we mentioned, as we know, the dreams of the mashke, right, just in a nutshell, is he dreams of a vine that there's no grapes, and then the grapes come, and he squeezes the grapes into a cup and serves it to Paro. There's three
days,
branches,
right.
3 branches in the vine. The story of the Sarah, the Chalom, the dream of the Sarah Ephim is 3 baskets, and there's a bird eating, he's motionless, and there's a bird eating from. Now, what they don't understand is what boggles the mind of the Sarah Mashkim, and why Yosef sees them, Hinam Zoyafim, they're very depressed, they don't know, they're very distressed of their dream. What is the problem? Is they don't understand, says the Malbim, that these dreams don't seem to make sense, because anyone basically could chap. It didn't need Yosef to tell them the Parshat pshat of the dream. There was 3 branches. Everyone knew Paro's Paro's birthday is in 3 days. That the whole country knew.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 days, three vines or 3 baskets, referring to 3 days. He's going to be making wine and bringing it to Paro. That you don't need to be a major symbolist to work that out. That you're going to be reinstated and bringing it to Paro. and the other guy, he's going to be motionless, so it's pretty much mashma that he's not going to be around. He's going to be killed. What distressed them, what they didn't understand, is that it doesn't make sense because the Sar Hamashkim, we mentioned, he's the one that's more responsible, and he's having a positive dream. And the Sar Ha'oifim, he's having a negative dream, and Maisa, he wasn't responsible. So they don't understand, how can it be referring to, I dreamt this, it can't be referring to me, because says the Sar Hamashkim, I was responsible. And the Oife says, I was not responsible, B'chalal, why am I having a bad dream? Says the Pasuk, that's why the Pasuk, hey, Vayachalmu chalom shnehem, ish chalamoy, b'layla echad, hamashkeh v'ha'oife. Meaning, the only way they can understand it is if the dream is referring to the mashkeh and the ofe. So the Sar Hamashkim now understands possibly that it makes sense if the dream is about the mashkeh, because he really didn't do anything, so he should be reinstated, or he should be kept alive. Whereas the Ofer, right, he was really responsible, and that's why the Sar HaOfer can only understand his dream if it's referring to the Ofer. So that's what they disturbed about, is we understand the dream, but it doesn't make sense over here. If I dreamt it, it's referring to me, it doesn't make sense. It should be the opposite. Says Yosef, so Yosef says the Malbim, Yosef, he jumps a step, and Yosef, this was the Chachma of Yosef, that he interpreted the dream that not that it's referring to the ones under them, the Mashke and the Ofer, but rather it's referring to themselves. He said, yes, no, the dream is about you, Sarah Mashke. Even though it doesn't make sense, it's going to happen to you, you're going to be reinstated, even though you were more responsible. And the Sarah Oife was less responsible, and it's going to be a bad interpretation. And it's going to be bad for you. You're going to be killed. And therefore, this why was it orchestrated this way? Is Kiyim Zachartani. The whole point of why the good guy gets the bad onesh and the bad guy gets a good onesh is only so that they'll remember Yosef. Ki'im zachartani. The whole point of this is that they'll now realize, oh, Yosef was a gaon. He interpreted it the right way, even though it didn't make sense. But he chapped, and it was all orchestrated this way, just so that they'll realize they'll chap the chachma of Yosef.
When the time comes, the king says, I have these dreams. What do I do? We know somebody has dreams.
Right. It took a long time until they remembered.
Right.
But the Malbim points out one last point, which is also a beautiful nekudah here, is that in the dreams themselves, it seems to be somewhat elongated. The dream of, let's say, the dream of the Sarah Mashkin. So he dreams what? That the vine is empty. And then then the grapes grew, and then he squeezed the grapes and he made the wine. What's this idea that the vine was empty? Just the point of it is that he squeezed the grapes and he made the wine and he brought it to Paro. Or he squeezed the grapes, made wine and brought it to Paro. What's at first the vine was empty. That's the notion. Ubagefen v'hinei gefen lefonai. There was a vine in front of me. Ubagefen shloshos rigim. There were 3 branches. V'hika barachas also nitza. Hivshila eshkeloisea. Meaning the grapes became ripe, and then I squeezed them. What was it seems to be lengthening the dream unnecessarily. Says the Malbim that this is exactly what Yosef. This is what Yosef saw. That the mahalach of is that Yosef realized that the Sarah Mashkim, the way he started off, right, with his dream, he started off with a very bleak future. He's got no chance. Yeah, the Sarah Mashkim, you give Paro a fly in his cup, off with your head, right? It started off with nothing there, no grapes, it was empty. He had a bleak future. And then it grew on him as the grapes grew, and then he was able to draw the wine out. And that's what happened to the Sarah Mashkim, even though initially there was no hope. But the hope started to grow on him. Whereas the Sarah Oifim is the opposite. The Sarah Oifim, as we say, he was there. The three baskets were full. Right? He had everything going for him. The Sarah Oifim had everything going for him, and slowly it was all taken away. And that's what happened to the Sarah Oifim. He was a fellow, says the Malbim. He was, at the end of the day, he lost it all. He had it all going for him because he wasn't responsible, but Hashem orchestrated it this way that he's got to be the sacrifice over here, just so that Yosef will remember him. So that's the Malbim's Mahalach. That little did we know there was only two people here, there were at least 4 people involved, and also. In a similar vein, the Ksonis was the rule that we know where there's only one Ksonis, now we know there's 2. Okay, maybe just to end off with a thought from the beginning of the Parsha.
So any connection between the fact that he was a baker and that we eat matzah? I mean, and that we eat matzah on Pesach. I just was thinking that there's a connection between other things, like we said in the beginning with the Ketanat Asim, and why we dip. You connected it with Pesach.
Matzah, wine.
Yeah.
Certainly the wine. With the Pesach.
Yeah.
4 cups of wine.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
There is a Mahalach I remember reading. No, because the Rishonim says that the 4 Lashonot of Geula, the 4 Lashonos of Geula is connected the 4 times it says Kois in the dream. You've seen that?
Yeah.
Connected the 4 times it says, and the question is, what's the connection between the dream? So I once saw, I think it was the Shalom Rav, there's a pshat over there that if I remember correctly, I think if even in the deepest of the deep, Yosef had hope to come out. So also we being in Mitzrayim, we had hope to come out. I don't think I'm doing justice for it, but it's a good point. Maybe Pesach time I'll try. I'll look into it. Okay, good. But something to that effect, that it's to show us the similar desire. Yearning. Okay, but if we just go back to the beginning of the Parsha, Vayeishev Yaakov Be'eretz Megurei Aviv Be'eretz Canaan. Right in the beginning, Yaakov settles, Vayeishev Yaakov Be'eretz Megurei Aviv Be'eretz Canaan. He goes back to his father's place. Now, Rashi in Pasuk Beis, near the end, it's a very long Rashi there. He says Vayeishev, it's famous Chazal, Vayeishev Yaakov is Bikesh Yaakov Leishev B'Shalva. Right, Yaakov wants to have it easy, take it easy, to have it calm,
Settle down.
Take it easy. It says Chazal, Kofatz alav rugzeh shel Yosef, which Kofatz is that it jumped. It jumped something that was meant to be. Okay, we know already from Avraham Avinu, he's promised that his children were going to go and be enslaved. But it sounds from over here that it jumped earlier than it was meant to be. Meaning, we know that the 410 years even started before we started down to Mitzrayim, when Yitzchak was born. So the whole story of Yosef didn't have to happen yet. And say Chazal, it's because Bikesh Yaakov Leishev B'Shalva, because Yaakov wanted to have it easy, take it easy. Now, what was behind? Okay, so it's quite a serious thing. We have to understand what was this. What's wrong with just having a chofesh?
Having a retirement.
Taking retirement. What's so wrong with that?
Yeah, well, retirement is Olam Haba.
Oh, good. Yeah. So Chazal say right. The person will have menucha. Rashi points out that.
Plenty of time to rest.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo yidayin letzadikim ma shemesuken lahem la'olam haba. In olam haba they're going to have it easy. Ela shemevakshim leishev b'shalva b'olam hazeh. They want to have it easy over here. No, you have to have it hard, so that you'll have it easy later. So just in 3 minutes, just to understand what was behind, what was happening, why Yaakov Avinu wanted, or what was behind his request. There's a Klei Yakar again. When we talk about the Avos, we can only say what the Mefarshim tell us, but we chas v'shalom to ever draw comparisons between us and the Avos. But when Chazal point out a point, they pick out a point, they want to teach us something. Torah is there for us to learn, and here Chazal see a fault in Yaakov Avinu, and where did it stem from? Says the Klei Yakar in Parshat Kisavai, at the end of the Torah, where we know the famous Parsha of Bikurim, and one of the famous pasuk in the Bikurim, in the Mikra Bikurim that we mentioned, is Arami Oved Avi. Arami Oved Avi Vayered Mitzrayim. So the pasuk says that Lavan wanted to destroy Yaakov, Vayered Mitzrayim, and he went down to Mitzrayim. So we have Lavan trying to destroy Yaakov, and Yaakov goes down to Mitzrayim. So a lot of the Mefarshim ask, well, what's the connection? Lavan wanted to destroy Yaakov. That wasn't a cause for him to go down to Mitzrayim. It didn't happen like that. A lot of Balei Koreh would be very upset about if you tell them, that's how it happened. There's a lot in between. There's our whole parasha, the sale of Yosef, and then eventually they went down to Mitzrayim, right? But because it sounds like Lavan was running after Yaakov to kill him, and he ran down to Mitzrayim. It didn't happen like that.
No.
And the second point is the Arami Oved Avi Vayer Mitzrayim. Where do we see that Yaakov Avinu, that Lavan wanted to kill Yaakov? It's not so clear. I think all the children asked us in the Haggadah, where did Lavan want to kill Yaakov? Adrabah, what do you see? You see Yaakov. Yaakov wants to leave. Lavan says, stay a little bit longer. Stay a little bit longer. He ends up remaining, we saw last week, 20 years he was by Lavan. So he hates him so much, but he still keeps him there. Says now, and why are we mentioning this pasuk b'dafka in the Mikra Bikurim? Says the Klei Yakar, this pasuk referring to Lavan is a very important lesson that we stressing in the Bikurim, is that when a person comes, it says kisavoy al-aretz, when you come into the land, and then you're meant to take your first fruits and you bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, and what you're saying over there is you pronounce into Hashem that here's my first fruit, and you gave me, this is what you gave me. Meaning it's a one time a year, at the inauguration, at the beginning of your fruit, of your first fruit, you're saying, I recognize that Hashem, you gave it to me. Why? Because there's a big worry when a person comes into the land. When you come into the land, where your shavtabas is a pasuk, that you'll get too settled in it, you'll become too accustomed, too comfortable, and then you forget Hashem, and then you'll forget that really who's the one that is supplying the parnasa is Hashem. So that's why once a year we take the first fruits and we say, Hashem, this is, you gave it to me. I recognize that you gave it to me. And in fact that's why Yaakov Avinu, right, he was in Aram Naharaim as Avraham was in Aram Naharaim. He now came to Eretz Yisrael, but he came from Lavan, right? The house of Lavan, which represented what? The Aram Naharaim, say Chazal, that it's a Medrash in Bereshit Rabbah. Omer Rabbi Levi b'shah shehaya Avram halech b'Aram Naharaim. Avram Avinu, he was walking in Aram Naharaim. That's in Iraq today. Urei b'nei Adam, he saw people oichlin v'shotim u'pochazim. He saw people eating, wining and dining, and having a good time. Omar halavai lo yehi chilki be'eretz hazos. Avram Avinu said, I don't want any part in this. When people are indulging in physical, in pleasures, food, and the sort, Avram Avinu said, I don't want any part in this. And really Lavan, who came from Aram Naharaim, he represented this. And we mentioned he hated Yaakov, but what did he hate of Yaakov? He hated the ruchnius in Yaakov. And therefore Lavan was trying to kill the ruchnius of Yaakov. And that's why instead of chasing him away, he asked him to stay even more. He made him stay for 20 years. Says the Klei Yakar, a scary thing. The question is, what did it really affect Yaakov Avinu? No. So the one word answer is no. But says Klei Yakar, Not so simple. The correct answer is there was something that rubbed off on Yaakov Avinu. And this is what Chazal are teaching us. Bikesh Yaakov Vayeishev b'shalva. This message of Aram Naharaim, to some degree, it's not me saying, the Klei Yakar is saying that, and the lesson is for us, that Yaakov Avinu, there was something that rubbed off from Lavan. Lavan, that was his whole life, was to influence Yaakov. When Yaakov ran away, he says, "Why are you running away?" He was trying to impose and show Yosef, show Yaakov that there's more to life than ruchnius and having a good time. And unfortunately, there was a minute on a level of Av. Bikesh Yaakov Leisha b'shalva. That's where it was stemming from. And Leisha b'shalva, meaning if that was by Yaakov Avinu, so you can imagine already by his kids it would be even more, and la'at it would get out of hand, kamuvan. So that's why say Chazal that we had to be sent down to Mitzrayim. Arami Ovid Avi Vayered Mitzrayim, or what's the connection? Is because of this. What rubbed off by Yaakov Avinu, this Gashmias rubbed off, we had to be sent down. Says the Torah that Mitzrayim was the Kura Barzal. This was the furnace of removing any Gashmias from us whatsoever. In Mitzrayim, unfortunately, we had to go down there because something had to be remedied. And this was the idea that there was some minute level of Bikesh Yaakov Leisha b'shalva that had to be removed. And that's the connection between Arami Ovid Avi. And that's why it refers to it as Arami. Why doesn't it say Lavan? Lavan Bikesh Na'arogis Yaakov? No, it's a fact. It's showing how he wanted to do it was through the Aramiut. From Aram Naharaim is how he tried to destroy. We don't find him trying to kill Yaakov. No, he wasn't. He was trying to kill his ruchnias.
Yeah, no, physically killed.
Physically he wasn't.
But spiritually,
but spiritually he was.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson, at least from the beginning of the Parsha. Bikesh Yaakov Leishav V'shalva, he wanted to have a good time. A Yid, we mentioned this before, a Yid is never allowed to go on a chofesh. He's allowed to go on a nofesh. Nofesh is rejuvenating you, you're gaining more strength so that you'll have more koiches for the next...
Recharge your batteries.
For the next, right, to change your batteries. But a Yid is never b'chofesh. A Yid is, even on chofesh, he has to keep, he's got to keep the Torah, he's got to daven 3 times a day. He takes it easy so that he'll get more koiches for the next month. But really, a Yid is not allowed to. This is the lesson from the Parsha. A Yid is not allowed to be b'chofesh, only b'nofesh.
And in two more Parshot and Vayigash, also the Chazal talk about Yaakov's, when Paro asked him, how old are you?
Right.
He complained. He complained about his life.
Right. Okay.
Next week is Hanukkah.
Oh.